Breaking news here into NFL Network right here on Total Access. Ezekiel Elliott and his ongoing saga. Well, there has been a determination reached. The 6-game suspension has been upheld. A motion for a preliminary injunction has been denied by a federal district court in New York. So with that being said, let's welcome in our guy, Tom Pelissero. Tom, what more can you tell us about Ezekiel Elliott and that 6-game suspension?
Cole, the ruling came down tonight. The request for that temporary injunction has been denied. Now, in short, to sum this up in the best lay terms possible, initially Ezekiel Elliott got a similar type of an injunction from a district court in Texas. But when that ruling ended up going to an appeals court in New Orleans, that appeals court said no, they did not have jurisdiction to rule on the case. So that got thrown out. The case lands back in New York. He played the past couple of weeks on a temporary restraining order because the judge who was to hear this case was not actually holding court at that time. The judge returned today, heard the arguments for both sides, and this time ruled against Zeke. So the suspension is back on, but there's a 24-hour grace period here for Zeke's team to consider its options and decide whether or not they want to now take this to yet another appeals court and continue to see whether or not they can get this suspension on hold while the broader legal case plays out.
So, Tom, what is the actual likelihood that that 6-game suspension is put on hold and we do see Ezekiel Elliott play sooner than later?
Well, the thing you got to remember here, Cole, is this is the Southern District of New York. This is where the Tom Brady Deflategate case played out. That's why the NFL immediately filed to confirm the arbitration award, the decision by Harold Henderson to uphold Ezekiel Elliott's 6-game suspension. They knew it would be most difficult in that same court that it ruled against some of the similar arguments that the NFLPA and Zeke's lawyers are trying to make here. And that, sure enough, that's what happened with this ruling tonight. The judge ruling that, among other things, the NFLPA failed to establish a serious question on the merits of the case and failed to show that the arbitration decision was fundamentally unfair. That's what this all boils down to, Cole. This is not about relitigating the facts of the case. This is not about determining whether or not Ezekiel Elliott is guilty or innocent. It is about whether or not Roger Goodell and the NFL followed the collectively bargained process for dealing with personal conduct violations, whether that process that they followed was fundamentally unfair. In this particular case here, the judges said the NFLPA did not establish that. That doesn't mean that Zeke loses. What that means is the suspension now kicks back in while the legal case plays out, pending, of course, further appeal.
Ezekiel Elliott and his camp now on the clock. They currently have 24 hours to consider all appeal options. Tom Pelissero with the very latest on Ezekiel Elliott and that current 6-game suspension. So with that being said, guys, the Total Access